I hope everyone's been practicing their smiles. Sometimes it's strange to realize that we have to make an effort or it feels unnatural to smile. Often happens on the first day or so of the retreat, and it'll be a pleasure to rediscover the joy of smiling. Okay, so keep your smile going during the talk, during your practice, and through the day. I hope today you've had a chance to play with the practice a bit, just get used to it. Start seeing what happens, when you close your mind, when you decide to do something, how much your mind cooperates with you. Start getting familiar with that warm feeling that you bring up with your memory. Start getting familiar with sending it to yourselves, start sending it to your friend. Start getting familiar with the 6 hours. Get used to using these together. So just when, for example, you learn to drive or you learn a new skill, initially it may seem daunting, right? So when somebody learns to drive for the first time, I know it happened with me. It seemed like the toughest thing in the world. Like, what do I press next? What do I move next? What do I do next? When do I change the gears? And over time, it's second nature, right? So it just happens in one flow. It is not. I don't have to remember what to press first, what to move next, what to change next. Okay. So it's the same with the 6 hours. So initially, it's all right to do it deliberately, remember the steps, familiarize yourself with each of the steps, and over time, it will start becoming more and more natural. So I hope you had the chance to try it out. I hope you had the chance to try out the walking meditation also. So uh, if you've done the walking meditation, you've identified a spot where you can walk for 20 or 30 feet and send that wish to your friend. Whenever your mind gets distracted, bring your attention back gently. Recognize that your mind has diverted away. Release the thought. Relax any tension and tightness in your mind. Smile and come back to your object of meditation. Right? I also hope that you've started with getting familiar with the tension and tightness. So this, like I said, this is the symptom or this is the tangible way that we can understand that our attention is very attached with something, that it has become very attached with something. And getting familiar with that is extremely important for understanding how your mind gets stuck in different thoughts or goes chasing after something or the other. So this is the first day, but over the weekend, I hope you will be able to spend a lot of dedicated time and get more and more familiar with this. And then we start going deeper and deeper into our mind and getting deeper and deeper into understanding how the mind works. So before we get into any of the things that we want to discuss, and I'll give you a sense of how we'll discuss things through the retreat. Before we get into that, I will just talk about the one-on-one check-ins. Okay, so starting tomorrow, we'll start to have daily check-ins where we'll connect for 10 minutes and we will track your progress in the practice and understand what needs to be changed or whether you just need to sit longer or what you can do with your practice. Sometimes, depending on what you're doing, we may suggest an alternate practice, so which helps you go deeper into the mind, helps you get more insights. Okay, so I'll just quickly share how you will be able to book these slots. So I have made available slots in the morning, in the afternoon, and the evening. Many of you may have different timetables, so I've just taken some time slots and made that available. So we'll share a link on a tool called Calendly. This will be shared on the WhatsApp group. Okay, so the tool will be shared, and when you click on that link, you'll come to a screen like this. So depending on whether you're using your laptop or your phone, you'll get some variation of this screen. And what I'd like is definitely choose a time for tomorrow. So for example, if you click on a particular date, it will show you the different time slots that are available. So 7 to 8, 8:30 in the morning is the time I've made available. Each slot is around 10 minutes, and we have 5 minutes if there is a more to discuss. There is an overrun. Okay. Similarly, 1 to 2:30 and 5:30 to 7. Okay. So you can choose a slot, one on each day. So either you can book all your slots right now, or you may give it 1 or 2 days and then book the slots for the rest of the week. But definitely do book your slot for Saturday and Sunday. So I have some clarity as well, and you have a confirmed time to check in with me. Okay. So we'll start with that. If for some reason you're not able to make it to the check-in, let me know in advance. My number is also on the WhatsApp group, so you can send me a message directly. And what you can do is you can we'll send this Google form. So this is a form that you can fill. So similar to the sign in, the form that you use to register for the retreat, you will have this other form, and here you can record what happened during your sitting. So I'll quickly tell you what are the kind of things that I'm looking for, the kind of information that helps me understand what's happening. So one of the things, when you sit now, when you do a sitting, note the time when you sat down and note the time when you break the sit. Okay. As we have mentioned in the prep kit, as we have mentioned in the beginning practice, during this sitting, I expect you not to move at all, right? So you have to sit very still, just like a Buddha statue. What might happen is sometimes you may end up bending a little bit to the front or to the side. If that happens, you can straighten slowly and come back to a natural and straight kind of position. If you have an itch, if you want to adjust your position, I would suggest you don't do that. Get into a comfortable position before you sit. If your mind goes towards an itch or something, just use the 6 hours for that also. Your attention has gone to that object, which is the itch that is happening. Recognize it, release it, let it be. Relax any tension and tightness in your mind, smile, and come back. And you'll find that you're sitting still. In a while, it has gone away again. Okay. And once you sit still, I would be asking you a few questions. How long you sat for, okay, without moving, and sending the warm wish to yourself or to your friend. Okay. Second thing I'll be asking is what's the longest stretch that your mind stayed with the object of meditation, stayed with your friend or with yourself before it drifted away. Now you don't need to keep checking the clock for 10 minutes being done, or this how long did I sit before my mind got distracted. So you don't need to continuously check the clock. Whatever your intuition says, your best sense of the amount of time, that is good enough. That helps me get a good idea of what's happening. You might also experience some other things. You might experience, for example, that suddenly you felt your verbal chatter in your mind go down, become very silent, or you may feel like the feeling kind of moved up to your head, or you may feel like your hands and feet disappeared. So there may be different things that happen during the sitting. If you experience something, just make a note of that. So normally it is good during the retreat to keep a notebook with you, and after every sitting, just make a note of what you experienced during the sitting. Did you have any questions come up in your mind? Did you find there was something interesting that you want to share with me? Do you have something that is bothering you or confusing you? So just make a note of those things, okay? And when we connect for the interview, we can discuss those things, or when you fill up the form, you can share those things on the form. Okay. So two options: either you book a direct check-in with me, where we have a video call and we understand where your practice is, what you need to do, or you fill up this interview form. Okay. So we'll share both of these on the WhatsApp. Fairly straightforward to book the time, fairly straightforward to fill the form. Start taking notes, start understanding what's happening in your practice so you can go further in. I also wanted to comment on one thing. So we've talked about sitting and walking meditation, and every day the expectation is that you do at least two sets of 30 minutes each. So why 30 minutes? it takes a while. I think already if you have practiced today, you will understand that it takes a certain amount of time for your mind to get away from the daily chatter that is happening. What you did just before the sitting, what you're planning to do with the rest of the day, conversation that you had yesterday, something or the other will come up. And it takes a little time for the mind to start getting more and more stable, quiet, and deep. Okay. So we need to sit 30 minutes twice a day and one 15-minute walk. What you can also do, right? So the idea of this practice is not just you develop skills that you can apply in a closed room, and those skills are only applicable in the closed room. We want these skills to come up into our daily life, right? So we do the walking meditation. Along with that, you can do what we call active meditation. Active meditation is, suppose you're traveling from one place to another. I hope you're not doing this while you're driving, but if you're traveling in a taxi or a bus or a metro, or you're doing something mundane like you're doing some chores around the house that doesn't involve you to be thinking very hard about it. So at that time also you can practice this walking meditation, how to keep sending that wish to your friend and use the 6 hours whenever your mind drifts away. Okay, so as you keep doing this, your mind is learning some new skills, how to stay with an object without getting disturbed, how to identify when the mind wanders away, how to bring it back. Okay, so that's a little bit about the check-ins for tomorrow. So tomorrow onwards, we start our daily check-ins, and a little bit just understanding what's happening with the practice, how it's going to develop. Once now that you've found a little bit of balance, use the weekend to start going really deep into your practice. Great. So starting today, we will go into a few concepts of how the mind works, how we have different experience of life, right? So we'll start getting into that. And the good thing is this is not just theory, right? So eventually there is a lot of theory. We all see inspiring talks, we see TED talks, we see great, wise people from different walks of life talk, but none of that really sticks. None of that really always leads to changes in our lives. We may feel inspired for a while, we may feel great about it, but we don't necessarily make changes to our life because of that. So the idea of these talks is not to share something, some theory that is not going to be useful, right? A lot of people in school feel that way. I'm being taught this, but when am I ever going to use this in my life, right? Whatever we discuss, you need to keep that in mind, and you will be able to start seeing those things happen in your own practice. You'll start to get a sense of what is happening in your own practice, and you'll be able to relate it to the discussion that we have in the evening. One of the good ways to do that is to schedule one sit right after the talk. Okay, so once you've heard some things in the talk, once you've understood some concepts, you'll be able to actually go into your own practice and see that happening in your own mind. And there is nothing more valuable than what you experience about your own mind and its activity. That is the most valuable teaching, and you will be teaching that to yourself, right? Great. So today I want to just start with one topic, right? The first topic. So we've tried to place our attention on a certain thing. So any meditation practice typically starts with attention, right? So the way we are practicing here, we are placing our attention on something, on an object of meditation. In our case, the object of meditation is bringing up a happy feeling and wishing that feeling to ourselves. So we bring that happy feeling, and once we've brought it up, we are wishing. So the object is sending that wish to ourselves. And after 10 minutes, the object is sending that wish to our friend. Okay. So this is the object of meditation. Many practices you'll see people use breath as object of meditation. Some people use some part of the body as an object of meditation. There is a very specific reason why we use the feeling of goodwill in the meditation. It helps you to progress faster. It also helps you to learn more deeply about the mind. And we'll unpack more of this during the rest of the retreat. But for now, let us just look at what a meditation practice typically looks like. We start with attention. We place it on one thing, which is the object, sending the wish to ourselves or to our friend. And every time the attention wanders away and gets caught in some other story, recognize that it's gone there, release that thought, relax the tension and tightness in your mind, smile and get your attention back. So we are building skills with attention, right? Understanding how the mind goes away, understanding how to bring it back. So this is what we're doing and why this is important, why, how the whole movement happens. So this is something that we'll get into very deeply. But why pay attention to attention, right? So normally what happens in our daily life, we say that, okay, we were doing this and then we were doing this and now I'm thinking about that. So we normally always recognize when we are in the middle of a thought process or middle of an action. We don't always understand how our attention actually moved there. So today I just want to talk a little bit about attention and why it is important to pay attention to it. Okay. So let me just share my screen. So why pay attention to attention? So just two scenarios that I think most of us would have experienced in our lives. The first one on the left, we have a group of students sitting in class. We always think of our mind as, when ever since we learned in school, that what's happening outside in the world gets refracted through our eyes and it forms an image on our retina. So we always think that we are seeing all of reality. But what's actually happening is, although these students are sitting in the same classroom, they're looking at the same teacher, the same whiteboard or blackboard, they're seeing the same information being relayed to them, the same message that the teacher is sending to them. They may be thinking absolutely different things. One may be thinking about what's being taught. One may be thinking about food because the lunch break is about to come. One may be thinking about going to play or something else that's going to happen after school. Somebody may be completely just bored and sleepy. So, even though people are exposed to the same environment, what is actually determining their experience of that moment is where their attention is. Has it happened to anyone that you've sat through an entire class and not absorbed anything in that class? So we just say that, okay, I didn't pay attention. But the fact is that your attention is actually on something else. You did pay attention, but you paid attention to something else. So at all points of time, we are paying attention. The quality of attention may be different. It may be a good quality of attention, it may be engaged, or it may be completely disinterested and without any energy in it. But we are paying attention to something or the other. Most of the time, when we are not very actively involved in a task, when it's not consuming all of our mind, we are daydreaming. We are thinking about one thing or the other. Story of our life is going through. What will happen of this? I wonder what will happen there. What should I do now? Why did that happen to me? So many things are happening in our mind. The image on the right is also very interesting. So two people are out for dinner, and what's happening is, again, they have a lot of options, right? They can be paying attention to what the other person is saying, or you might be anticipating that you're going to get a call or a work email. It doesn't even need to be something real, right? So many of us hallucinate that our phone is ringing or vibrating, or there's a alert going on and we check it. Or we may be thinking about some other thing, about our careers, or about wanting a job change, or about what a holiday that you want to take, or about the health of somebody, of our health, whatever it is, right? So we might be thinking multiple things. So even though you are engaged in conversation, you may be intending to spend a certain amount of time paying attention to somebody, your mind may be somewhere else. Again, if you think about this, about the child that is in the class, or if you even reflect on your own. So our entire experience of life is a sequence of where our attention is placed and what we are thinking about. So if we are for instance, constantly thinking about work, then that thought about work, thought about work, thought about work, that is the sequence of things that is happening, and that is the experience of life, right? We might come from office back home. There might be multiple things happening at home. There may have been things that have changed, right? And what we might see is instead we might just be consumed with work, and we did not experience any of the other things that was happening there. Or you may find that because sometimes we regret that I should have paid more attention to that class because that was something very valuable. I could have used that skill today, but at that time I was completely distracted with something else. So our life experience, if you think about it, is a sequence. So we see multiple things. We experience multiple things. At any point of time, I could be paying attention to speaking with you. I could be thinking about something else. I could be looking at something in my surroundings. I could be thinking about the air conditioner that is on. So where the attention is determines what we are thinking and what we are thinking, and that series of what we are thinking about, where our attention is, that becomes the experience of life. So even though if you send two people on the same path, their experience of life will be very different. Now, what happens? So if we say that this is the experience of life, our mind or these thought bubbles that I'm using to show where our mind is situated, what is our state of mind? It is not always where we want it to be, right? So it is, if we think about it, if we try to break up our day into different things, we can create a timetable. We say, okay, at this time I'm having breakfast, at this time I'm getting ready, at this time I'm commuting, at this time I'm doing my work, etc., etc. But what happens is during those periods we are not doing just that. Our mind will keep going into things that we don't intend to do, that may not even be important, or that may not even be related to what we are trying to do. And these are the red bubbles. So we are intending to do something, but our attention may be somewhere else. And the where our attention is may actually also be something that is distressing or not useful at all, right? So a lot of us have these pet distractions. So we have distractions that take our mind away from what we intend to do. And there may be distractions that are very serious, very upsetting, very recurrent, and that completely consume our attention. I like to call these rabbit holes. So these people have rabbit holes related to their health. It may be related to somebody in the family. It may be related to some other relationship. It may be related to financial worries. It may be related to worrying about your future. It may be related to worrying about your reputation. It may be related to self image, what you think of yourself, your body, your mind, your professional status. How do you see that as a part of society? So, our attention governs our experience of life, and our attention can often get stuck in rabbit holes. So one thing that can happen is it can get go into distractions. Okay, you suddenly remember something you have to do tomorrow, and then you come back. So you have distractions that take you away from where your mind is, or you suddenly remember that you forgot to do something, or you remember something someone said, but you don't stay too long with it. And then there are distractions or different thoughts that come that can completely consume you. You can spend maybe a half hour and just get stuck just thinking about the same thing, maybe worrying about something, or maybe even it can also be anticipation of something that's going to happen in the future. Okay, I'm expecting a promotion or a year-end bonus, and I'm continuously thinking about that, or I'm thinking about graduating and continuously thinking about that. And a rabbit hole can be as mundane as simply opening your phone and not realizing where an hour has gone. That hour went to your phone because your attention was placed there, even though you may have planned to do something else or intended to do something else. And this is exactly what we are trying to understand. We are trying to get more familiar with what is actually our experience of life. So we have a story of life where we think according to our timetable. I did this, I did this, I did this, and now I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that and that. But we often find we don't end up doing what we intended to. And we often find that we end up getting very bothered about something that we didn't plan to do. We didn't plan to get maybe spend an hour on the smartphone. We didn't plan to get upset about some relationship in our life that has gone bad. We didn't plan to judge ourselves for our eating habits and our body image, but our attention can go there. So that is why it is important to pay attention to attention. Okay. And this is exactly the first skills that we are developing, right? So when we use the 6 R's, when we recognize that our attention has gone to something that is other than what we were intending to do, which is sending the wish to ourselves or to our friends. As soon as we recognize that, we sharpen what is called our mindfulness. I'll define what is mindfulness in just a moment. Okay. We recognize, we let that thought be, release it, relax any tension and tightness in our mind that is related to that comes up in our mind and body, right? We relax that tension and tightness, we smile, re-smile, and come back to the object of meditation. So you started from here, got distracted, and you used the 6 R's and you came back. So every time you recognize, right, what's happening is you're training your mind that it is important to recognize. It is important to understand when your mind goes away from something that you're intending to do, right? And this is developing the second skill, which is mindfulness. Okay, so this exclamation mark, the thing that tells you that your attention is no longer where you want it to be, that is mindfulness. So quickly, I'll define mindfulness. Mindfulness comes from the Pali word sati or the Sanskrit root word smriti. It means remember, and remember what? Remember to observe how mind's attention moves from one thing to another. So you remember to know where your attention is. You remember to know how it is engaged. So you are also, as you relax the tension and tightness, you also start becoming mindful of the tension and tightness building up in your mind. Mindfulness can be defined as remembering to observe how attention moves from one thing to another. Okay? So when we use the 6 R's, we learn to be mindful of where our attention is. Is it currently with our object, with what we are intending to do, or is it somewhere far away? So right now you may discover that your mind has drifted away, your attention has drifted away after you've maybe spent a couple of minutes thinking about that other thing, right? And what happens is, as your mindfulness starts to get sharper, you start to detect it earlier and earlier. So mindfulness knows where your attention is. It knows how it is engaged with the current object, right? So when you're with your object of attention, you won't object of meditation, you won't feel that tension and tightness in your mind. But as soon as it goes into a distraction, starts staying there, you will start feeling that tension and tightness. So when you relax, your attention or your mindfulness also remembers to observe how your attention is engaged with the thought. The next thing that you will start getting mindful about is that when you're with the object of meditation, you might find some things come up in the background. You may hear some people who listen to a lot of music, they might hear some music playing in the background, or some thought may start coming up. As long as you're still with your object of meditation, you don't need to use the 6 R's. You just allow them to come up and go away. So your attention is what feeds these distraction, right? So it feeds, if you put your attention on that other thought, if you start chasing after it, seeing what is happening, then your attention gets completely engaged in that. So your mindfulness understands where your attention is, understands how it is engaged, with that tightness or without that tightness. It understands what else is trying to come for my attention. And finally, as you keep practicing this, you will start to understand how it is that attention moves from one thing to another. So eventually, your life experience being a sequence of your attention being in one thought or one activity and then going to the next activity. If we are able to understand how this little movement happens, we start to understand more about how our entire experience of life comes together. So this is what we'll be breaking down in more detail. Okay. So mindfulness and 6 R's or the harmonious practice. These two skills allow us to detect when our mind is going into rabbit holes or when it's gone into a rabbit hole or a distraction, and it allows our minds to come out without fighting with it, right? The more we fight with it, if we try and fight with something that has come up in our mind and say that I'm not going to think about this, then that thought will keep popping up again and again. So there are like very common examples. For example, in a meditation session, you say, whatever you do, don't think about a orange colored monkey. No matter what you do, don't think about a orange colored monkey. And the first thing that pops up in everyone's mind is an orange colored monkey, right? If you fight with it, if you try to force your mind into not thinking about it, it will keep coming up. That's why we use the 6 hours. When we use the 6 hours, we let it be. We don't fight with it. We don't go chasing after it. We relax the tension and tightness that is actually sustaining that thought, and we smile and come back. Okay. So mindfulness and 6 hours are the two skills, and we keep using them again and again to move forward in our practice. Great. So I'll stop there. I'll take a few questions and then I have some thoughts on what you can try to do for tomorrow. So today, when you sit and practice after this talk, or tomorrow when you practice your meditation, try to see how mindful you are. Try to see how well you're able to recognize your attention going into these different thoughts. During your day, try to see what are your rabbit holes, right? What are those common thought patterns that everybody knows what are your pet rabbit holes, right? So it may be thinking, worrying about your future, worrying about finances, worrying about your self image, worrying about your relations with someone, and try to use the 6 hours for them as well. So even if you're not practicing active meditation, if your mind goes into a rabbit hole, use the 6 hours. And remember the last hour, which is repeat. So every time you do that, if it is something that is a rabbit hole, that is something you have visited often, that you have made it very personal, your mind will keep wandering into that. But every time your mind goes, you 6 hours. When you every time you 6 hours, you teach your mind that it is possible to come out of this rabbit hole without fighting with it. And you also teach your mind that it is possible to be vigilant about your mind going into this rabbit hole, to be aware of when you are there. So instead of maybe spending an hour, flushing an hour down the toilet because you're scrolling on your phone continuously, you can maybe detect that in a few minutes and come back. Or maybe you can detect even when you're reaching for the phone without any agenda and you're simply going to spend an hour wasting. So that is one example. There are other rabbit holes that you might have. So tomorrow, I just want you to, as you continue to stabilize your practice, I want you to see in your mind, what is actually happening. How long do I get stuck up in a story before I suddenly get alerted to the fact that I'm not with my object of meditation? And use the 6 hours. See how relaxing the tension and tightness allows you to let go of that distraction more easily. The other thing I want you to see is things that are in the background, right? Coming in the background. If you don't pay any attention to them, they will just dissipate. So just mentally, just make a note of it. Don't, if you start thinking more about what is coming up, your mind will start chasing after it. But just you will observe that if you're with your object of meditation, there are things in the background that are coming up and you don't chase after them, they will disappear on their own. So these things will form the basis for our discussion tomorrow. I'd like you to quickly think about, during your practice, during your day, reflect on this, and I will share this exercise with you also. You can also make a note of the things that come persistently up in your mind. Okay, we can discuss that during our check-in. You can also make a note of any rabbit holes that you find your mind going in continuously. You may be aware of some, you may not even be aware of some, right? So for example, there may be somebody who said something to you at your workplace, your neighbor, family member, and that is continuously going around in your mind. You may not be aware of it. You may not think that this is something that my mind is going to again and again. You may actually, when you're in that story, you are actually thinking about whether it was right or wrong, who was right, who was wrong. Those kind of things are going on in your mind. But if you are able to identify it as a rabbit hole, make a note of that. And tomorrow during our check-ins, we'll discuss, any rabbit holes that you noted and whether you're able to use the 6 hours to come out of that rabbit hole. Doesn't mean you're eliminating that, right? So 6 hours is not a stick that you use to chase away thoughts. It is something that you use to bring your mind calmly and skillfully out of a hole that it goes into. Great. So any questions, any thoughts?
I have a question.
Yes.
You say rabbit holes, it
Yes.
does not have, it doesn't mean unpleasant necessarily, right? It can also
No.
feel, because I realized one thing that kept happening. It's almost like I was tricking myself. So I had 100 things to worry about, but my mind kept going away from the object to a beach and the waves. And somehow I was just like, it was nice. So but that kept happening. Like the beach kept coming up, and that's something I find very soothing. So it wasn't going down any worry holes, but it was going to a place which I find soothing. So I was just curious about that.
So that's a great question, Rituja, and so that is also a rabbit hole. It may not be an unpleasant rabbit hole, but it's a rabbit hole because you did not decide to spend that time of your life doing that, right? And it's gone there. And maybe, it may be associated to other things at some point. If you're not able to, you realize that I've not taken a holiday for a long time, okay? And then that may be attached with your thought of the beach that, you know, I have to have that holiday. And or you make a plan for it and maybe it gets delayed or moved somewhere and then it will cause distress. So anything that our mind goes to and stays for a long time, we get very personally attached with it, right? And the most important thing is it is taking us away from where our attention we want to place, right? So that is the first thing we want to know. We want to place it at some place intentionally and be with it. If our attention is not cooperating, then that is the first skill we want to develop. Then we can choose where to place it. If you intentionally choose to think about the beach, you should be able to do that, right? So it should not be happening by accident. So we want to lead a intentional life rather than a accidental life, right? So we want to move towards that.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, great. Uh, you can reserve your questions for tomorrow. I will just repeat. From tomorrow, we will start our one-on-one check-ins. So we'll send you two links. One is a Calendly link. That's a link to book time with me on your calendar, right? So whatever time slot you select, that will come in my calendar. I will be on this link, same link. You can connect on the link and we'll have a quick check-in about your progress, any problems that you're having, and how we take this further and deeper. Okay. So that is the first thing. If you're not able to come if you're not able to come in the slots that are made available, you have the option of filling up a Google form. Okay, that's similar to the questions that I would ask in the check-in. Okay, so we'll send a link to that as well. If you're not able to join the check-in, then please fill up the Google form. I want you after this call, once we share these links, I want you to book your slots for tomorrow and for Sunday. Okay. And on Sunday, I'll remind you to book your slots for the rest of the week. So for a lot of people, Saturday, Sunday timetables will be different from the rest of the week. We'll do that. On Sunday, I'll remind you to book the slots for the rest of the week. So we'll start with this one-on-one check-in. Second thing, I want you to all start thinking of opportunities for active meditation. So apart from your two sitting meditations and one walking meditation, try to identify times in your life when you're not doing something that is mentally very engaging or challenging, right? So if you're traveling somewhere, stuck in traffic, you're not driving, don't do it while you're doing something important and that is requires safety like driving, right? So if you're waiting for something, you're waiting for an appointment, for something, or you're doing something routine at home, maybe making the bed or cleaning up your washroom or something, at that time you can practice active meditation. So send that wish to your friend. Stay with that friend. Every time your mind gets distracted, bring it back, right? So what this does is helps us to be more intentional, more in tune with our attention, even during our daily life. So as that happens, you will be able to start bring those skills into more and more challenging and complex situations, right? So for example, when we get into an argument, often we are repeating arguments that we've had multiple times over with the same person, especially if it's a family member. We are just taking the same pattern, some variation of it we are repeating, right? So even those things, you can start becoming mindful and aware that my attention has gone, become tight with this thought, and I can get it back without fighting with it. And I can maybe change the course that this interaction will take. So those are the skills we want to develop. I talked about the interview, talked about active meditation, and the third thing I want you to do is start seeing how your mindfulness works during your meditation. Start identifying some of your rabbit holes, where your attention, sinks of your attention, sinks of your time. Where is your attention going that you didn't intend to? Start making a note of this. Start making a note of those things that come persistently up in your practice as well. Okay, and tomorrow we'll discuss that in our check-in. Okay, fantastic. So let me just share my screen and we will share merit, right? We will make a determination to share the anything good that we acquire from this practice with everyone. You can read this with me. Keep yourself on mute because we won't sound very good together online. So let's begin.
Can't
May
see it.
suffering once be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May enlightened beings of mighty power share in this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a lovely rest of the day, everyone. Keep smiling. Make a habit of it. Thank you.
Thank you.